Hello, I'm Jerry Fort. I'm going to read a story out of this book here called The Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state based on true events. This book is by Michael Teitelbaum, and the state I'm going to read this time is Arizona. Arizona. How many of you have been called a human guinea pig? Somebody wants you to try something before they do. Well, here's a story about a human guinea pig. One day, not too long ago, I got an email from a guy named Randy Barker. He wanted to share something truly terrifying that had happened to him. The subject was a single word: abduction. Jason, I've read lots of stories about the paranormal, especially ones about aliens. I like the stories you have posted online about Massachusetts and Roswell, New Mexico. I wasn't sure they were true, though, until I had an unbelievable experience myself. Meeting aliens isn't cool. If you ever encounter them, Jason, run for your life. I know you'll be curious like I was, but it's not worth it. Can I send you my story? Signed, Randy Barker. Of course. I emailed Randy right back, and here's what he sent me in his next email. This is the story. I was working as part of a crew repairing a 2-lane road just outside of Tucson. Me and the rest of my 5-man crew had been working since early morning. The day grew short, and as the sun began to set, I felt the evening chill creeping up. 5 o'clock finally arrived. Time to knock off and head for home. The sky began to darken as we made our way toward the truck. As we sped along the road leading around the mountain, my buddies and I made jokes, relaxing from the day's hard work. My friend James was in the middle of a good joke about a possessed cactus when I spotted a bright light flickering through the trees against the blackening sky. "What the heck is that?" I asked, peering through the windshield. The other guys shrugged and stared dumbfounded at the huge light, which appeared to move sideways across the sky. As the truck rounded a bend in the road and we slowed to a stop, the glowing object came into full view. Am I nuts? I asked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Or is that a flying saucer? The spacecraft hovered no more than 20 feet above our truck. Brilliant red spokes of light radiated from a large white central circle on the bottom of the ship. The saucer made no sound and it didn't move. It just hung in the sky, lighting up the truck and the surrounding forest. To this day, I don't know what I was thinking when I jumped from the truck and ran forward until I was standing directly beneath the spacecraft. I guess I wasn't thinking at all. I felt like I was in a trance. My buddies were shouting at me from the truck, but their voices faded into the background of my consciousness. I was completely focused on the impossible vision above me. Suddenly, a low rumble rang out from the ship, growing in volume and intensity by the second. The vibrations rattled my bones and shook the fillings in my teeth. At this point, I regained enough sense to make a run for it, but I was completely unable to move. Some kind of force field was holding me in place. A shaft of white light shot from the bottom of the saucer. The wide beam surrounded me, and jolts of energy tore through my body. The pain was unbearable. It felt like I had shoved my hand into a high-voltage transformer. I tried to scream, but my body was no longer under my command. I was blinded by the light as my arms and legs twisted in agony. I was slowly being electrocuted. Then everything went dark. I slowly opened my eyes. My skin burned like it was on fire. I reached out my fingers and felt cold metal. I must be in the hospital, I thought, on some kind of medical table. Then the memory of the ship and the blazing white light came rushing back. Am I dead? I wondered in terror. I tried to sit up, but was stopped by a metal restraint across my chest. My ankles were also pinned down. That's when panic set in. I can't move. I struggled against the restraints, but they cut into my chest. This is no hospital, I realized as my body shook with fear. Trying hard to fight back the terror, I turned my head and saw 3 small figures leaning over me. This can't be happening. This can't be real. Wake up, wake up. But I was all too awake. Sweat from my forehead rolled into my eyes. It stung and blurred my vision. Squinting, I could just barely make out the figures staring down at me. They had grainy gray skin, large heads, and oversized green eyes. The creatures stood perfectly still and said nothing. I knew instantly that these guys were not human. I've been abducted by aliens. The thought slammed into my brain like a hammer blow. Who are you? I shouted. Panic rising in my throat. What do you want with me? One of the aliens leaned down toward me and reached out a long, thin arm. Through the blinding glare, I could see that it held a curved metal tool that ended in a thin, sharp point. It was headed right for my face. Leave me alone, you monsters! I screamed, whipping my head from side to side. The creature with the tool backed away and then made some noises to one of the others. The second creature moved forward and slammed a metal restraint across my neck and face. It pressed against my windpipe so that any movement I made cut off my air supply, and my head was locked into position. The alien again brought the tool closer. It was clear now that it was headed right for my eye. Because I couldn't move, I had to watch it come closer and closer. I started to hyperventilate. No! I screamed as a creature caught my left eyelid with the point of the tool and pulled it up against my eyebrow. My left eye was blinded by tears and pain as he poked and prodded my eyeball. Oh, geez. Then a third creature snatched my right lid with the other sharp prong, pulling that eye open too. No, no, stop! I screamed, but I still couldn't move without choking myself to death. They jabbed my right eyeball, and searing pain tore into my brain. I felt weak, unable now even to scream. Finally, they moved away, leaving my eyes pinned open. I was grateful to find I could still see, but what I saw terrified me. They were coming back, carrying a device shaped like a pair of headphones, but these were no headphones. They placed the thing onto my head and tightened it. Sharp needles plunged into my temples. Electric jolts shot into my head. I opened my mouth to scream, but they gagged me with a thick, smooth cloth. I knew I was on the verge of unconsciousness, maybe even death. My mind flooded with images, flashing at high speed, a series of circuits and gauges, brain waves dancing up and down like lines on a graph. A strange red landscape, barren and rocky with no sign of life. My bedroom at home, the farm I grew up on, the gleaming exterior of the spaceship. Finally, they yanked the needles from my head, and the picture stopped shooting through my brain. Is it over? 6 tiny but powerful gray hands tore at my shirt, shredding it and leaving my chest exposed. Then the aliens lowered a long knife toward my heart. I trembled. My mind raced. I was a dead man. Yee! That's what it says. Why, I shrieked in pain as a huge razor-sharp knife plunged through my breastbone. Then I blacked out. I woke up slowly. Once again, I wondered if I was dead. I opened my eyes and saw only darkness. Were the aliens nearby? Lifting my head uncertainly, I realized that I was lying face down on the side of a road. A road, I thought, breathing hard. I rolled onto my back. A stabbing pain on the left side of my chest made me gasp for air. My eyes stung as I was bathed in a bright white light. No, not again. But the light vanished, leaving only the faint outline of a silver disk, growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared in the star-filled sky. I struggled to my feet. My legs felt weak and rubbery. My head throbbed, and I ached all over. I touched the place where the knife had pierced me, but there was no wound, only a terrible pain. Unsteady and dazed, I fumbled for my phone and called my best friend on the work crew, Harris. At first, Harris thought I was a prankster, someone who had heard about the abduction and was calling as a joke. But within a few minutes, I was able to convince him that it was really me. Half an hour later, he arrived in his pickup truck and helped me climb slowly into the passenger seat. He stared at me in disbelief. "You look awful, buddy. What happened to you? 1 second you were there, and the next you were gone. We've been trying to convince everyone it was a UFO, but they say you must have just run off. You were so spooked." Harris explained urgently that he was so spooked they thought he ran off. "We didn't know if you were gone forever." "It was horrible," I said weakly. I shook my head and closed my eyes. It was too soon to talk about it. I only remembered the pain. Everything was so vague, too terrifying to remember now. "Well, you're back, and that's the important thing," Harris said. "How many hours was I gone?" I asked. My friend turned to me in wide-eyed disbelief. "Randy," he said, "you've been missing for 5 days." So in between his unconsciousness, that when he was unconscious, he was out for a day. Who knows what the world they were doing to him, while he was unconscious. Okay, there you go. Human guinea pig. All right, Arizona. Human guinea pig. Where's my notebook at? I write that down here. Arizona. Human guinea pig. All right. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you are into the paranormal type stuff, you like this kind of stuff, you collect it, you like the books, read about the stories and stuff, like paranormal paraphernalia, is that right? I've said it before, but this time it just didn't sound right. Get this book, The Scary States of America, 50 Weird and Terrifying Stories, one from each state, based on true events. It'd be a cool collection book. Is that right? Anyway, and Michael Teitelbaum would appreciate you buying his book. All right, we will see you on the next one.